I knew I was wrong. The rain drummed against the corrugated metal roof, a relentless rhythm that drowned out the silence between them. Yahaya stood by the window, his reflection ghostly against the dark glass. He didn't turn around when he heard the hitch in her breath. "I knew I was wrong," he whispered, the words barely escaping his throat. The weight of the silence. For months, Yahaya had carried secret like a jagged stone in his pocket, sharp, heavy, and impossible to ignore. He had told himself he was protecting her, protecting the life they had built in the small village of Lokoja. But as the truth finally spilled out onto the dusty floorboards, he realized he hadn't been protecting anything but his own pride. The moment of clarity. The lie. A business trip to the city that was actually a desperate gamble at the underground card tables. The cost. Not just the savings for the new roof, but the trust that had been their foundation for 10 years. The realization. Seeing her face, not twisted in anger, but slumped in a quiet, devastating realization. He turned then, and the sight broke what little resolve he had left. Amina wasn't shouting. She was sitting at the wooden table, her hands folded as if in prayer, but her eyes were brimming. The breaking point. "I knew I was wrong," he cried out this time, his voice cracking. He dropped to his knees, the sound muffled by the rush of the storm outside. "I thought I could win it back. I thought I could be the provider you deserved without you ever knowing how close we came to the edge." Amina looked at him, a single tear tracing a path through the flour dust on her cheek. "Yahaya," she said softly, "I didn't need a provider who could win. I needed a partner who could tell the truth." The room felt smaller then, the air thick with the scent of rain and regret. Yahaya reached out, his hands trembling, realizing that while the money was gone, the man he used to be was what he had truly lost. The storm didn't let up, but the atmosphere inside the house shifted from a sharp, cold shock to a heavy, suffocating reality. Yahaya stayed on the floor, his forehead resting against the edge of the table. He waited for her to tell him to leave, to pack his things and vanish into the wet night. But Amina did something worse. She stood up, walked to the hearth, and began to stoke the dying embers of the fire. The long road back. "Crying won't put the tin on the roof, Yahaya," she said, her voice hollow. "And it won't put the grain back in the storehouse." He looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "I'll fix it. I'll take the extra shifts at the quarry. I'll sell the motorcycle." Amina stopped, the fire iron poised over the coals. "You'll sell the bike? The one you spent 3 years saving for?" "It's just metal," he said fiercely. "I'd burn the whole world down if it meant you didn't have to look at me like I'm a stranger." The first step of amends. Yahaya didn't wait for morning. While the rain turned to a light drizzle, he gathered his tools. He knew that words were no longer currency in this house. Only actions carried value now. The sacrifice. By sunrise, he had pushed the motorcycle 3 miles to the village square, selling it to the local merchant for half its worth, just enough to cover the immediate debt. The labor. He took a double contract at the stone quarry, working from the first light of dawn until his hands were raw and blistered. The silence. He stopped making excuses. When neighbors asked why he was walking or why his eyes were sunken, he simply told them he was working to provide. A new foundation weeks passed. The jagged stone in his pocket was gone, replaced by the honest ache of hard labor. One evening, he returned home and placed a small, tied bundle of Naira notes on the table. It wasn't the fortune he had dreamed of winning at the cards, but it was clean money. Amina looked at the money, then at his scarred hands. She didn't smile, but she pushed a bowl of jollof rice toward him. The first warm meal she'd served him in a month. "The roof still leaks in the corner," she remarked quietly. Yahaya took a bite, the salt of his own sweat still on his skin. "I'll be up there tomorrow at daybreak, Amina. I promise." "Don't promise," she said, finally meeting his eyes with a flicker of the old warmth. Just do it.